The savannah lay in silence. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Ranger Cole adjusted his binoculars, scanning the endless golden grass that rippled like water under the dying light. He had spent years out here, yet tonight felt different. Heavier. Something moved. Slow, deliberate, and silent. Too silent for any natural hunt. He leaned forward, heart thudding softly against his chest. The movement vanished, then reappeared further left, low to the ground. Tracking something unseen, Cole wiped a thin line of sweat from his temple. His radio crackled, but he didn't answer. His instincts told him not to make a sound. Through the lens, a shadow glided across the tall reeds, a shape too low for a lion, too focused for a hyena. The air shifted, carrying the faint scent of dust and fear. He whispered to himself, "Something's wrong out there." Then the cry came, distant, haunting, sharp enough to cut the silence in half. It wasn't the cry of a predator. It was a plea, a young one calling for help. And suddenly Cole knew whatever was happening in that grass was just beginning. The cry echoed again, longer this time, and filled the empty plains like a wound that refused to close. Cole lowered his binoculars and listened. It wasn't a lion's growl or a hyena's laugh. It was softer, broken, and wet with pain. He followed the sound through his scope. A young buffalo lay half hidden in the grass, one leg twisted at an odd angle. Its skin was cut and dry blood had stiffened along its flank. The rest of the herd was nowhere in sight. The sun was falling fast and every shadow was stretching toward the calf like a warning. Cole's fingers hovered over the radio button. Protocol said wait for backup. But the nearest station was 20 miles away. By the time help came, the plane would belong to the night. He looked back through the lens. Dust shifted on the horizon, small clouds swirling in patterns that moved with purpose. Predators were listening too. The cry had become an invitation. Cole felt his throat tighten. He knew what was coming. The savannah was built on rules older than mercy, and tonight it would collect its debt. He whispered as if the wind could hear him, "Hold on, little one." Then he saw the first pair of eyes glow from the dark edge of the reed bed, low, steady, and waiting. The hunt had heard the call, and it was on its way. The moon climbed over the horizon, pale and sharp like a blade. Its silver light spilled across the plain, revealing shapes that should not have been there. Cole focused his lens and froze. A coalition of hyenas moved through the tall grass, slow, steady, almost military in their rhythm. There were at least 10 of them, shoulders low, ears forward, eyes gleaming with a strange focus. No laughter, no chaotic howls, only the sound of feet brushing against dry earth. They were too quiet for hunters. Cole whispered, "This isn't hunger. This is something else." He recognized a few of them by their scars. Months ago, during the Great Drought, the buffalo herd had driven these same hyenas away from a shrinking waterhole. That night, 2 hyena pups had drowned in the mud. Cole had logged the event. Now, he realized, this was no coincidence. It was revenge. Organized. Intelligent. Planned. The pack spread out in a crescent around the wounded calf, exactly as lions would. One stepped forward, testing the air, jaws clicking softly. Another waited behind, holding the formation. They were communicating through silence. Cole's stomach tightened. Nature didn't plot. But tonight, it looked like it did. He could almost feel the balance of the wild tilting, shifting toward something cold and deliberate. And under the ghost-white moonlight, the savannah held its breath once again. Cole's finger hovered over the trigger of his rifle. Not to shoot, but to scare. Just a warning shot to break the silence, to make the predators scatter. But then he stopped. Every instinct screamed act now. Every rule said don't. The law of the wild was clear. Interfere, and you change everything. But the cry of the calf, it wasn't just fear. It was pleading. And the longer he listened, the more human it began to sound. He shut his eyes and saw another night. A flash of headlights, a rhino calf trapped in a poacher's snare, and his partner running toward it before the area was secure. A single gunshot. Silence. He never made that mistake again. Cole's hand trembled. The metal of the rifle felt heavier than ever. He lowered it slowly, breathing through his teeth. "Not again," he whispered. He couldn't lose control to guilt. Not here. Not now. Through his scope, the hyenas were tightening their ring. They moved with eerie patience, waiting for the moment the calf would collapse. Nature's verdict was about to be delivered. Cole leaned back against the truck's frame, heart pounding in rhythm with the plains. He whispered the truth he'd learned long ago. In the wild, mercy is the hardest thing to survive. The night stretched wide and empty. Then, faintly, a sound rolled through the wind, low, rhythmic, distant. Thunder without clouds. Cole lifted his binoculars. Far on the horizon, dark shapes began to move. Heavy, deliberate, unstoppable. The herd was returning. He could see the glint of horns catching the moonlight, dust curling around their feet like smoke, and at the front was one figure larger, slower, and older than the rest, the matriarch. Her hide carried scars that told her history. Claw marks, healed punctures, deep creases from battles long survived. She had led them through droughts, fires, and floods. She had buried calves and fought lions. And now, once again, she was turning toward danger. Cole's breath caught. She wasn't related to the calf. He knew that much. Yet something ancient was calling her back. Maybe it was the sound of that cry. Maybe it was memory. Maybe it was something even older. The instinct to protect life, no matter whose. The herd slowed when they reached the edge of the clearing. The matriarch lifted her head, trunk raised high, testing the air. The scent of blood was unmistakable. Still, she didn't turn away. She gave a deep rumble that rolled across the grass like a warning to everything that listened. Cole whispered, "You shouldn't be here." But in his heart, he already knew. She came because silence was not an option. The calf's breathing came in shallow bursts. Its sides quivered with every gasp. The circle around it had closed. 10 pairs of glowing eyes watched from the tall grass, each step of the hyenas closing the space between life and death. One hyena moved closer, head low, teeth bared, but silent. The calf stumbled, knees buckling. Its shadow merged with the ground as if the earth was already claiming it. Cole gripped his binoculars tighter, his knuckles pale in the moonlight. Then, something changed. A flicker in the calf's eyes. Not terror, not surrender. Something raw. It pushed itself up, legs trembling, dust clinging to its wounds, and with a sound barely louder than a whisper, it charged. A desperate, clumsy charge, but a charge nonetheless. The nearest hyena froze. Then another stepped back, confused. The pack broke formation, their rhythm fractured by something they didn't understand. For one breathless moment, the calf stood defiant, chest heaving, eyes blazing like embers refusing to die. Cole felt it deep in his gut. The shift. Predators hesitated. Courage had interrupted the algorithm of fear. The hyenas began circling again. Cautious now, their confidence cracked. The Savannah waited, because in that heartbeat of madness, one fragile creature had changed the rules, and every living thing knew. Something bigger was coming. The ground began to hum before the sound arrived. A deep vibration that ran through stone and bone alike. Cole turned his head toward the horizon, then he saw them. The herd was charging. No roar, no call, no chaos. Only rhythm. Hundreds of hooves drumming against dry soil, shaking the night itself. The matriarch led the front line, trunk curled tight, eyes fixed on the danger ahead. Each stride carved conviction into the dust. The hyenas hesitated, caught between instinct and disbelief. Predators of cunning and speed were now facing the unstoppable weight of unity. One step closer, and the earth beneath them trembled like it feared the force it carried. Cole's breath shortened. This wasn't a rescue, it was judgment. The matriarch reached the clearing and stopped. The air thickened. The calf stood between her and the hyenas, trembling but upright. For one suspended moment, no one moved. The wild held its own reflection, a standoff of power and respect. Then, slowly, the matriarch lowered her trunk. She didn't charge. She didn't kill. She simply stood, tall, silent, unyielding, and the pack understood. They backed away, step by step, tails low but heads high. No blood, no victory cry, only surrender to something older than fear. Cole whispered, "Power doesn't always roar. Sometimes it simply stands still." The dust hung in the air like smoke from a vanished fire. Slowly, it began to fall. Where moments ago thunder shook the earth, now there was only stillness. The hyenas had melted back into the dark, their shapes swallowed by the grass. No growls, no cries, just the whisper of retreat. The calf stood surrounded by the herd, trembling, coated in sweat and dust, yet breathing, alive. The matriarch lowered her great head, brushing her trunk against the calf's shoulder, a gesture older than words. Acceptance. Cole exhaled for the first time in what felt like hours. He lowered his camera, the leather strap brushing his cheek, leaving a thin line of dirt behind. His voice was barely a whisper, carried off by the night wind. Sometimes, mercy is the loudest roar. The savannah listened. Crickets began to sing again, timid at first, then steady. And under the quiet stars, the world repaired its rhythm, as if nothing had happened. And yet everything had changed.